there's anything we've been talking about over and over again is how was 2024 for you? And that's the first question that I'm going to pose to His Excellency, the Governor of Bauchi State, Mohammed Bala. He joins us on this program to review 2024. Good evening, Your Excellency, and thanks for joining us this evening.
Good evening, Ayo. It's a pleasure to see you. And, good evening, Nigerians.
Yeah. So I'll ask you, how was 2024 for you, both personally and officially?
Well, 2024 has been very rewarding to me as a person, and very challenging to the states and the subnational and to some of us that are trying to strive to bequeath maximum efficiency and productivity in the system. But certainly it has not been easy, but we appreciate whatever comes because we believe that everything comes from God.
You know, every year gives us an opportunity to reflect and then refire. And you just talked about the fact that it has not been easy. Oh, most certainly. And there's hardly any Nigerian who would not say exactly the same thing. So for you, as a governor and as a member of the National Economic Council, who has to deal with the activities of a whole state, one of 36 in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, what are those not been easy moments for you? What are the challenges that you think we had that really tested and tried your leadership as a governor and as a member of the National Economic Council?
Well, as a member of the Nigerian Governors Forum and member of NEC, I think there are so many reform initiatives of the federal government that were new, very revolutionary, and which we supported wholeheartedly as members of NEC, and where implementation became haywire, and then it was bequeathing a lot of hardship that has really presented us with a lot of problems because of the commonality of the need to provide governance at all levels of government. We supported the harmonization of the equalization of foreign exchange and then removal of subsidy. And of course, that comes with a lot of things. And of course, the increase in the minimum wage vis-a-vis the lean revenue streams and what will come out of it to our treasury and so on and so forth. That are some of the issues that have really brought a lot of agitations, fears, and apprehensions to me as a person and to some of us as my colleagues when we are doing some peer review mechanism.
His Excellency, I know that perhaps this period is also one of those times not very comfortable for you because of your comments on the tax reform and, a lot of reactions.
Which of the...
On the tax
My
reform.
Tax reform.
Yes, and you've been getting some, hits from the presidency, that you need to clarify, what you meant. Were you threatening the president and things like that? I think that also puts you in a not so comfortable position as we enter 2024.
I am very, very comfortable. I cannot be threatened as a governor. I owe and I stand by my comments, and it is meant in good faith. And it is not meant to malign, to insult, or to do anything to the contrary other than meaning goodwill and good faith. Because I believe as a leader of a subnational, I should tell the presidency what we feel about their reforms, about their initiative would have concomitant effect on us. And of course, when I said that the reform has some good aspects, but certainly at the end of the day, it is going to impoverish or put us in a very deep comparative disadvantage to be able to live up to our obligations of paying salaries, doing infrastructure, and so on and so forth, because all states are not the same. And I will believe as a leader of the federation, and all of us are federating entities, they should listen to us, not to be arrogant and showing some elements of impunity that whatever happens, they will go ahead. And I think we must have the courage to humbly, with all humility and sincerity, say, please listen to Nigerians, listen to us, especially some of us that have apprehensions. And we have supported you from the beginning to come up with policies and programs that we believe are germane in changing the trajectory of leadership in Nigeria. But where we have fear, you should also give us a listening ear in terms of stakeholding and collaboration that is needed in the federation entities or Federation of Nigeria.
Well, but what would you like to see, sorry, Ayo, what would you like to see made different in the reform to make it acceptable to you?
First of all, the first reform about the removal of subsidy and, of course, the equalization of foreign exchange and the revenues that are coming on stream, there must be transparency in the sharing. A lot of monies were made, but were made as subnational to be getting a paltry sum. The rest are being kept without telling us where they are kept, in the pretext that if we are giving all the money, it will cause inflation. That is very unfair because the value of the naira has reduced. Yes, we are getting more, but what we were getting before was better in terms of value, purchasing power, payment to contractors, and even to our people that were paying, even to the wages. So we needed to really have more transparency, more collaboration, not to hold on to what is belonging to the subnational, and at the end of the day, come up with policy like the local government autonomy, which is just, I feel, is a form of blackmail, because you cannot deal with the local government without the state. It's a bit to jump over the state administration or the subnational to deal directly with the local government, which will cause chaos. So some of these things are issues that I feel. And secondly, the issue of the tax reform. Tax reform states, I hope you are hearing me.
Yes, we can hear you, on His Excellency.
The state, we have different peculiarity and configuration. Our microeconomic realities are different. Our orientation are different, even though we are all federating entities. So we should be listening when we said, if you bring a reform that will make me disadvantaged in terms of the takeaway to be able to pay salaries, most especially, it is not my fault when your ways and means in the previous administration has reduced what is coming in the revenue stream for us, for the state to benefit from NNPC. We are just completely dependent on tax and VAT. And if you make it disadvantaged, then how do I survive? How do I make it? Because I don't have any means. We are so dependent on the federation account. And if you are going to do something like a reform, well, some aspects are good. And a good aspect is that it will reduce multiplicity of taxes. It will harmonize the tax administration, and also engender private sector development and raising the tax to GDP ratio. But certainly, there are so many areas that I will tell in the course of this conversation where we have apprehensions. We are not saying that you should throw it, but you said no. Even at the neck, we discussed and said, please, try and foster collaboration. You said no, it will still go on. Some of the issues that will baffle you, even NEC were not aware that these bills were going to the National Assembly. Even some of the ministers, I think we are not in a military regime. Even military regime accommodated some of them, or those that have military background, accommodated somebody like the president, who was a governor, and he was able to challenge rightly the federal government. And heaven didn't fall down. But some of us are giving advice in good faith because we know him. He's a Democrat. He has really spearheaded a lot of protests against the federal government rightly, especially during the Nadeko days. But we are disappointed that even genuine intervention are seen as an affront or an insult that will warrant the kind of enlist the kind of response that I got from presidency. That is very undemocratic, and that is very unlike Tinubu.
All right, but His Excellency, what would you say to those who say that perhaps this tax reform would make states sit up with their internally generated revenue, because it does seem like some states or a lot of states in the country are not effectively using the natural resources that they have.
Madam, before we sit up, do we die before we sit up? We need to discuss. Yes, it will help us sit up. Even during the Buhari regime, we were able to raise our IGR from paltry 300 million in Bauchi State to 3 billion. But it's not enough. So you don't implement him whole and stinker. You have to go by persuasion. You have to apply this thing gently. If I go into all the aspects of the tax regime, tax reform that is giving us hiccups, you will bear with me that we are not against the reform. We are not averse to reform, especially given my background as a public servant. Reform is the manifestation of the need to engender good governance. But it should not be implemented to the detriment of the majority of the federating states. That's what we are saying. We are not saying he should not take a bill, he should not, but please, let's take a time to discuss this, to agree, and then remove some of those areas that we feel are dangerous for the survival of the subnationals. That's all. You know? But it's not that we will deprive him of his rights as the president of Nigeria, as somebody who has done a lot of reform in Lagos, and we had high hopes on him, but rather midway we are disappointed that he is not even accommodative. He doesn't listen, and he believes that whatever he wants to do, he has the right to do it. He has not that right. He has to listen to Nigerians when they have apprehensions.
Interestingly, during the first presidential media chat, the question was put to the president along the line of the tax reforms. And he also mentioned the fact that, okay, maybe one or two conversations need to be had in order for, before that law, the tax reform bills anything, significant can come out of them. Now, that presidential media chat that the president had, what would you say is your own takeaway, particularly in terms of the interventions that the president is talking about in the area of the economy, in the area of course, the tax reforms and all? What stands out for you?
So many things stand out, and that's what informed my outburst during the Christmas. He has not shown remorse to the hardship we are going as people, as Nigerians, at the subnational level, and he is not ready to be flexible to accommodate our interests. That is what icked me. But certainly I have a lot of respect. I don't want to join issues with the president or the presidency, but I just want to be listened to be heard, that there are so many areas that I, even from the opposition, recognize the need for reform, as I said from the beginning. But certainly there are areas of suspicion and mistrust. And there's a section of the country, especially the northern part, feel that our own sensibilities, our own perception, our own survival is not taken care of. It's not as if the presidency doesn't care. But that is very unfair because he is the most respected nationalist. And even from his own disposition of mentorship and the rest over the years, we believe he is somebody who is a complete Nigerian, a nationalist, a patriot, and so he should listen to us. I, for a moment, went under as a former media man, as a governor, because I don't want to be criticizing just for criticizing sake. I only give constructive criticism. And sometimes I may be hot because it has to be, because the way it is going is as if he is talking, Mr. President and his advisors have forgotten the need for persuasion, inclusion, and then stakeholding.
Okay. Your Excellency, it's very interesting the way conversations around the tax reform bills has come up. Now, there are those who have pointed at the benefits squarely from a governance perspective. There are those who are also looking at it from a political perspective. For you, how much of these issues around tax reforms is political? How much of it is governance related? How much of it has to do with fiscal federalism?
Well, I am one of those that doesn't see this from the political perspective. I still give the president benefit of doubt. And of course, from the way it is, he has brought on some young people with a lot of ideas to do this. And of course, the major areas of contention to me is the issue of upward review of the derivation from 20 to 60% that would drive some other states in the country. But of course, the requirement of the companies to bring the issue of consumption in VAT is not practicable because, are you hearing me, please?
We can hear you.
It's not practicable because this country, the economy is an informal economy. We have not developed the data and the capacity to even determine consumption at the point of consumption. Everything will be localized to determining who gets what in VAT from the point of view of headquarters of where these items are manufactured. So being a consumer tax, I think so many states will be out of it. And of course, gradual increase in VAT from 7.5% to 15% on non-essential goods and the rest will negate the purpose of exemption in some aspect, especially in capital tax, and it will further aggravate poverty because whatever you have brought the exemption, the other side will factor it in the factors of production. And at the end of the day, you will not achieve anything. And of course, agriculture has been completely exempted from the VAT regime. And to me, most of us, we are only in that field, we only contribute our own national quota in areas of food production. And if it is outside the VAT calculation, then of course we are not part of it. My advice is that we should retain the status quo of the formula on derivation and of course bring more of automation so that we'll be able to look at the data in terms of using consumption as a basis on a long-term basis, but not immediately. Therefore, we should exhume that aspect of review of the derivation formula so that we will live and let live. We will not allow some states to die just because they don't have the headquarters of the companies in that place. And of course, the poverty, if you look at the birth rate now, the poverty decimal in this country. It's said that whatever you do, you have to manage inflation, manage production, and of course, what comes to the states. If you give exemption in some places because you want to make sure you show some good face, a human face, to those that are not producing so much, they said between 20 to 30 million, they will be exempted, some workers at the lower level. At the end of the day, they will suffer because those companies who have not exempted will factor all this into whatever comes to them in terms of purchasing and what have you. And then, of course, the development levy, how Naseni, Nitida, and Tetfan will gradually die because I would say sunset provision, because they will start gradually, and by 2029, no provision will be made for them. It's unfair because some of the disadvantaged states, not only from the north, are benefiting from these agencies. And by the time you just brought them under, you just bring them under the normal budgetary allocation, which are paltry and they hardly come, and the implementation is just like a yo-yo, you will not be able to. They will not be able to provide the required services in terms of education, in terms of technology, innovation, and what have you. So I think we should just allow those agencies to be in perpetuity under the revenue compendium as per what we have gotten it from the the compendium of establishing the agencies under the under their bills. So, and then later on, of course, student loans, we can use budget to provide for student loan so that at least we will show you can even educate us at the state level, at the local level, to make sure we make a lot of budgetary provision for student loan. So many aspects of the bill that I find repugnant to us, you know. Yes, you can teach us as federal entity to engender efficiency in terms of tax administration, but certainly for you to bring this to me will provide a lot of difficulties to the states that don't have the required revenue base, and of course, they don't have the productive capability to benefit from that, especially when you look at the issue of revenues coming from the oil sector that is hardly coming. They are using it to pay some loans that they have taken before. So the states that don't have should not be made to suffer.
All right, His Excellency.
But yet, he can put in that place.
His Excellency, it does seem like another area where the subnational is not in agreement with the national is the state police. That also came out during that media chat that the president had. What's your stance, and how would you think that will affect the issue of security? This year, we've had a new terrorist group come up. We've had quite a number of incidents also, mostly in the north, you know, which obviously is a major concern for you. Do you think that state police would bring solution to this? And I mean, also coming in agreement with the president, who seems not to be, you know, in agreement with the state police stance?
Well, when I presented this to our state executive council, everybody was in agreement that we should have state police. But like the president, I also have my suspicion, because the state police can be politicized. because we have seen how SAEC has been politicized. We have seen how INEC has almost been owned 100% by the federal government. And the policing is an impartial phenomenon in governance. Nobody should own it. But certainly, because of the gap in terms of policing ratio between citizens and the police, we need to really encourage state police in the manner that the rule of engagement will be provided by the structured political architecture of the country, the police, the army, and the SSS, so that there won't be arbitrariness, there won't be subjectivity in the application. At the same time, we will give areas of intervention or areas of the policing that will not engender our own democratic governance, democratic growth. This is my own take on the state police. It is desirable because if you look at the ratio, it is very appalling. We need to have complementation from the state governments if they can afford, because it is very expensive. But certainly, it's an area that is a double-edged sword that we have to look at it, maybe start it from a very modest beginning and see how far it has gone. It is being implemented in the United States, but we are not United States. We have to look at our peculiarity so that at the end of the day, here in Bauchi, we're implementing something like that, even though it is not structured or backed by any legislation. What we are doing is to make sure that there is stakeholding between the structured security agencies, our hunters, our traditional rulers, our religious leaders, in such a manner that there is feedback. Nobody comes from Zamfara or from Niger or anybody to anywhere to commit any crime without these people coming together. And the state government and the local government are funding them very well. That is why we are just like an enclosure that is very peaceful in amidst the surrounding that is having a lot of insecurity. We are doing it because of stakeholding. We are doing it because of feedback. We are doing it because of M&A. We make sure informers that are normally benefiting from this business are not allowed to participate. Mostly small chiefs. You have seen the analysis that billions of naira is being transferred for ransom. So it is a big industry. We have to muster the political will. And it is not only the state police that will do it. It has to have a political will at the level of the subnational and local governments, because it would appear that the thing is so mesmerized into the federal government that they will not be able to do it because of other contending needs on the treasury.
Your Excellency, still on this security thing, it's a little baffling when we hear some of your colleagues, some in previous administrations, say that they know the people who are fomenting trouble. They know the bandits. In fact, we've had interviews with people on television who would say, look, they are our neighbors. They are people that we know. There are those who also come on air and say, look, some of them are there for some political reason or the other. Now, would you agree with those who say that they know where the bandits are, yet the insecurity in those states, the banditry, the kidnapping, those things persist? How does it sound to you? How does it feel when you hear such things, yet people's lives are at stake?
Honestly, I have a lot of respect for my colleagues at the subnational level and even our seniors at the federal level. I believe we must muster the political capacity and the courage to be able to do this thing without sparing anybody. And of course, there shouldn't be any gods in this aspect. And we must have the fidelity and sincerity to implement or to punish and reward. Even the security agencies, they know where these bandits live. And you see some key members of the security agencies participating in ransom collection. And to me, it is very appalling where you have an admittance of inefficiency or lack of capacity. And of course, as you said, some of the traditional rulers, in Bauchi, what we did was to make sure we waste any local chief that compromises. And that has stopped it. Even at the level of emir, we don't agree, because most of the misdemeanors are perpetuated at the local level. And some members of the local authorities, those in charge of forest, in charge of land, in terms of and then the small chiefs that have responsibility or jurisdiction. And of course, we too, as a government at the subnational level, we have not really paid adequate attention in terms of remuneration and reward to the local chiefs who are taking care of our commonwealth, our forests, our farmlands, and we are paying them pittance, 5,000, 10,000. We have raised their earnings here, and we are making them accountable. And we have to do that. And that's why sometimes the issue of local government autonomy is good. If the local governments will take the responsibility of local policing and local administration of the sleeves of governors, that will be very fine. And it will be cascaded up to the federal government. But certainly I agree with you, it is baffling for states. Some people are just perpetuating crime and criminality, and they are not touched. They come and celebrate and carry on as if the impunity is too much. It is baffling me. In the neighborhood here in Niger, they don't allow any Boko Haram or bandits to participate or go with glee and gee. So why are our military people who had that capacity before? I remember the time Buhari invaded Chad from Jos as a GOC. And of course, he was able to decimate even the gendarmes that are there. But today we are spending so much money. It would appear that this is becoming an industry. And I want to reserve some of my comments, but certainly I'm as disappointed as you are. I think some people are just left to go without punishment.
Well, one other area, one of the catalysts for fighting insecurity that a number of people have talked about is that of electricity, of power, of energy supply to the various communities. Thankfully, the Electricity Act of 2023 and the constitutional amendment of the same year now empower states to generate, transmit, and distribute electricity within their territories. Now, for you as a governor, first of all, how does that come across to you? What are the challenges that you know are going to come? What are the collaborations necessary? What will it take? Has Bauchi State, for instance, come up with an electricity regulatory commission of its own?
We have not come up with a regulatory framework yet, because at the level of the North-East governors, we are doing so much in terms of peer review mechanism. Fortunately, we have the North-East Development Commission, and we decided as 6 governors that we are going to do something uniformly. And so we have gotten the huge capital outlay required to provide power. It's not for states like us that don't have benefits of derivation or extra resources. We have to start somewhere. The insight of knowledge will give us the benefit of knowing where we are and where we want to go. Of course, we have comparative advantage in terms of green energy. That is the issue of sun, solar, and so forth. We have a lot of proposals on that, and we have accepted here, and we are proposing them. And in Bauchi, we have, and Gombe, we have the hydrocarbon present, oil and the gas present is so huge. And for my own state, we are working with the private sector who is going to establish a 1.5 billion naira cement factory to produce 10 metric tons of cement per annum. And there they have the coal, they have the gas, and they are going to produce so much power that will be sufficient for the Northeast region. And what we are doing, we are signing an agreement with them because they will produce their independent power, and because the state is going to be part of the equity structure of the company, owning about 10%, we will allow them to produce power, and they have huge capacity. Already over 100 European foreigners are there trying to see how are we going to use coal, or are they going to go with NNPC to use the gas. So we do have problem with regard to the implementation of the deregulated electricity regime. Certainly, we are comfortable. But I must tell you, even at the moment, that is the challenges for the subnational. Some of us are not even able to pay our bills to the various discos because of what we inherited, and the tariff is so huge, billions of naira. Talk less of producing. In my village, when I become governor, you will laugh. Some NEPA or disco people went to collect power. They were chased out that why should you come to us when our son is the governor? We will not pay bill. So we need to have a lot of sensitization. People don't know that governance is a responsibility. And of course, in the villages, they don't have any industry. They don't have any factory. Even the sewing machine, they use hand. So they only have lighting points. And yet they are brought arbitrary bills. And so we have to look at all these things before the implementation. And that's why we have very good consultant, and the Northeast Development Commission is doing very well for us. And all of us, the governors of the Northeast, irrespective of party, we are together. We will implement this by the grace of God.
You know, Your Excellency, when you said that Bauchi State is not getting derivatives from oil, it just reminded me that, wait, how many years ago did we hear that there was oil discovered in Bauchi, between Bauchi and Gombe states? How is that going, by the way?
Well, I don't want you to accuse me of doing things against the federal government. After the expiration of the last regime, since then, we have not seen much activities. But recently, I have seen some bulldozers, some scratches being done, as if it's to deceive and delude us. But as far as we are concerned, we are leveraging on other resources. I told you we have coal, and the company is going to use it. There is no much activity to exploit the oil and gas potential of Alkaleri and Kolomani, Gombe Bauchi axis. Because, I don't know, maybe the huge capital outlay, but I heard that recently I've spoke to some NNPC officials that they are coming back. But for a long time, they have disappeared, and it would appear they are not very serious about it. And in fact, I'm trying to get an appointment with the president to brief him and to crave his indulgence to please do that for us, because it will be an institute development of oil and gas potential. That means we are going to have power generation, we are going to have a refinery, we are going to have a petrochemical industry, we are going to have a fertilizer plant. We will have so many institute developments since we don't have any pipeline to take it out of Bauchi Gombe. We don't have any sea to transport it to Europe. It will be a double-edged advantage for us if we get developers with the capacity to develop it there, and it will serve the whole northern part of the country.
His Excellency, well, we do wish you the best as you try to get that appointment. But, you know, perhaps there's also another side to it. We see what is happening in the Niger Delta with all of the extraction of crude and processing that's going on there. The issue of vandalism making it even worse. Yesterday, we did have a conversation on this program on the issue of climate change, environmental damage, and how it's affecting food. And our panelists agreed, I mean, almost unanimously to say that it lies with the subnationals, the attitude of individuals that is affecting some of these consequences of climate change. So would you say that in Bauchi State, there's the consciousness of some activities that are bad for the climate, you know, dealing with flood, and all of that? Is there that consciousness?
Well, there is almost complete absence of consciousness or synergy with the need to reverse the negative impact of climate change, because people are driven by poverty and ignorance, and sometimes of lack of understanding that they need to know where they are even building houses. You go to a place, a flood drain area, and then you will see houses being built, and then they will be so inimical to advice. Again, you can see wood felling is almost everywhere. Charcoal making, all our forests have been depleted, and there is nothing we can do to make sure that we replace all these trees that have fell. And of course, even with the green wall that we are enlisted by the World Bank and the Federal Ministry of Environment, we are doing a lot of sensitization. But because of what I have told you, the two factors, ignorance and then maybe lack of understanding and poverty, they will continue to do it because they must cook food and they will deplete the forest. And of course, you will see this charcoal business is a big monster. So, but here we have developed a capacity for enforcement, going after them. Sometimes we do confiscation, but at the same time we do persuasion, telling them. But let me tell you, this charcoal business and the rest, even some highly placed individuals are in it, because there is a lot of money in it. What we are doing now is to make sure that we liberate on AgriSell, a World Bank program that we are enlisted by the Federal Ministry of Finance, the World Bank, and the federal government to ensure that we plant more, to create buffer zones, and to ensure that at least we don't deplete our ozone layer. But certainly the communities part and parcel of the aggravation of the negative impact of climate change, because you can see a lot of flooding where there is no flood, because houses have been built and a lot of activities that is creating this. So we are doing so much sensitization through the emirs, through the ulamas, through the clergy, and of course as a government too, making sure that we carry out the enforcement, punishment, reward and punishment on the spot, confiscation and outright confiscation and so on and so forth.
Perhaps another thing would be to expose the people to alternatives. You know, how much do they know about alternative solar, for instance, which is a natural resources? How much do they know they can get electricity from there and, you know, do some other forms of energy from there?
Now, solar is another thing, but it all goes to the affordability. Can we afford it? I don't want to deceive myself. I don't have the resources to provide all the combustible, the firework that is required to heat or the energy requirement of the villages and towns of Bauchi. But certainly that's where to go. And we are trying to bring some companies from China. We have signed an agreement with a sister province called the Shandong province, and they're helping us so much because that multilateral agreement is helping us. They are going to establish a solar power plant here where they will do all the profiles, they will do all the other components of solar, and that will bring it cheaper. And in fact, even the Almajiri school that they use firewood in the night to teach their children, we are deploying a lot of solar through the whole bank project of BESDA. We have deployed over 10,000, and the state is also doing its own, and we are urging the local government to do, because that's one area where they use a lot of firewood, apart from the cooking fuel that is being used. But certainly, as you rightly said, solar is the ultimate thing that we will deploy. Even in irrigation, people can no longer farm. Dry season farming is here. I am now really pitched because we have to make sure we encourage our people who have been driven out of their farmland by flood as a result of depletion of siltation of our rivers and the rest. But they cannot afford the diesel. They cannot afford the fuel. So the ultimate thing they would require to fuel their own, to energize their own pumping machine to pump water is solar. And so we are working very hard to make sure we do that. But certainly, it's not something that we have made much progress, but it is on the offing in 2025 that we deploy a lot of resources to ensure that our farmers in the villages, irrespective of flooding, because sometimes flooding will leave a flood drain for people to plant a lot of resources that will even have more harvest than when they would have done it during the rainy season. And so we try to look at our disadvantages or our challenges to convert them into opportunities.
Your Excellency, we have about 30 seconds to go, but I need you to speak to this if you don't mind. There's been the challenge that a number of people have talked about in practically, well, almost every sector of our national life, and in the area of collaboration. You just said now that you are struggling to get an appointment with a federal agency just so as to do something that they need to do in the area of education, in the area of health, environment. That collaboration, the issue of collaboration has always been an issue of concern. Speak to us about how we must cross that hurdle in the year ahead.
Please, I'm craving the indulgence of Mr. President. He is the leader, he is the father of this country. Thank you for the opportunity, Ayo. He should open up for advice from the subnational. We are always together at the Governors Forum under the good leadership of the chairman of our council, the governor of Kwara, and of course the vice president at NEC. These are the only avenues that we can interact, apart from other councils that have been established. Please, he should listen to us, irrespective of our political background. We meet well. We are not there just to cause distraction. Because as he said from the beginning, it was time for governance. Okay. It's not time for politics. When the time for politics comes, we'll come back. But it is the leadership at the apex that will engender that collaboration, that interaction, that stakeholding, so that at the end of the day, we will have it tick. As for me, as a person, as a federalist and a federal civil servant, I don't have any problem accessing a lot of either human capital, other resources extra resources from the federal government, irrespective of my opposition posture, because I worked there for 25 years and I was a senator there. So I have sympathy from my colleagues, but others cannot even have the courage to go and get it. So there must be collaboration, and he should open up where we criticize him. We are doing it in good faith. It's not because everybody, whoever you are as a politician, you aspire to be a president, maybe. But there's no, there is no need for insult or taking us outside the line.
Your Excellency, my apologies. I think the point has been made, and I want to believe that even the president and his the people around him are talking to him about those things. And well, thank you so much for your time, Your Excellency, Mohammed Bala, Governor of Bauchi State. Yeah, thank you so much, and have a happy New Year ahead.
Thank you. Same to you. And same to
okay. So.